Hello, everybody. I'm Stacy Renee, and Do You Feel Unimportant is the topic today. So, before I get started, I first want to thank the people who have subscribed to this channel, my new subscribers, and I thank you who have been along all the whole way. And I just can't tell you how much it means to me that you subscribe to this channel. And thank you. And I also want to remind you all that I don't go by SEOs and I'm not trying to buy subscribers. I want people to be here organically and authentically because that's my message to you, is to teach you that you are great the way that you are and to help you understand why we think the things we think and we do the things we do and why we're feeling unimportant today. So if you like this, please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe so we can help my channel grow. And if you feel like this is shareable, please share it too if you think somebody else is feeling unimportant and they may want to know why. So I do coaching. I'm a coach with Pop Recovery Systems, and I print out these papers, and I print them out in my group coaching. I'm printing it out now because I'm of an age now where I forget things, important things that I want to tell you. And then have you all ever spoken, and this is kind of what we talked about last night in the thing, but when we speak and we're learning to use our voice, because a lot of times plays a role in our feeling unimportant, is the inability to use our voice and to feel like we have something to say. And do we question what we do say? Are we obsessing over what we talked about and wondering, was it right? So I hope that this is going to help you bring some light to that subject. And like I said, I printed it out. I did have it on the computer. I did make you all one video to where I read down the thing, but you can tell that I'm reading. If you can tell that I'm reading, I'm going to go ahead and freaking read it, because that's what I'm here for, is to tell you that what you do, however is working for you, is okay. You don't have to be like the other people who can remember all this stuff. Now, do I do this every day, organically, authentically, and genuinely? Yes. But I'm trying to stay in line, to stay in order, to give you the best information that I can in a short amount of time. So let's get on with it. So, feeling unimportant. I used to feel unimportant too, and I can tell you that it's the root cause of when I act out. And so I've had to learn how this word discernment, know how to first honor my feelings, to look at my feelings. Feelings aren't facts, but they are valid to look at. It doesn't mean because you feel unimportant that you are unimportant, because a lot of people please that feel unimportant. And if you're people pleasing, you're doing it because you want to feel important. So you are important, you just won't feel it until you learn to step into the esteem of it. Does that make sense? All right, if y'all feel like anything makes sense or resonates with you, please put it in the comments below. So here's some of the reasons that you may feel unimportant, okay? So I felt like people didn't listen to me either. So part of it was because sometimes people spoke over me. I would be talking and I talked in this tone of voice, and I just didn't know my power. So people would be talking over me. And I would just eventually give up and just sit there like a wallflower. Wallflower to power. How about that? How many of y'all want to go from a wallflower to power? All right. So sometimes they would discard or dismiss what I say, which made me feel unimportant too. Like they weren't listening to me. And so I used to think that there was something wrong with me, is that I was uninteresting. I wasn't enough. We all feed ourselves, evidence and messages of not being enough. And certainly when no one's listening to us, we don't feel important. So I also had this thing about this always happens, and that was my evidence. This always happens. I started to heal by being able to talk with somebody and purge my thoughts and learn other ways to express myself in power of finding my voice. Because this is the thing, y'all. If we sit back and watch people talk, it doesn't give us the power to talk. Okay? Because we're trying to learn from people sometimes by watching. I used to do that. I wanted to fit in so bad. I would sit with people and watch them, but I didn't feel comfortable talking, and I don't know that I really heard what they said, because while they were talking, I was trying to figure out what I could say that would measure up to what they were saying, to where I would look okay. because I didn't feel like I fit in. And there was no way that just by listening to them that I could feel like I fit in. So I had to practice. So I had to talk to somebody. I had a counselor. I had a therapist, a life coach to talk to so that I could hear my thoughts. Because we keep thinking our thoughts and they keep sticking here in our glands if we don't share our thoughts. And we won't learn how to use our voice if we don't use our voice. So that was the thing. You have to use it to feel comfortable speaking. A lot of us don't feel comfortable speaking because we haven't or weren't heard, and we don't know how that would feel. So at first, even if someone did hear us, we may question ourselves. Did I say that right? Was that weird? I wish I would have said this. That's normal, and it takes practice. There are those who speak without thinking and those who think without speaking. There are those who speak without thinking and those that think without speaking. In the middle of that is harmony. And that's us able to process what somebody's saying, getting out of our own way, hearing their words, and then being able to speak our truth. But a lot of us don't know our truth. And we haven't known how to speak our truth because we haven't had that practice I'm talking about. So here's the thing. You get to decide which one of those that you are. We don't look at these things to criticize ourselves, but we just look at these things so we can grow, y'all. Just so we can grow. Sometimes we think when we're adult we should know. But no. What I've learned as an adult is that that was just the beginning of my learning who I really was. I grew up in an environment to where I was able to be comfortable in that environment. But as we're adults, we are still growing mentally and emotionally. Sometimes physically, if we're hiding. I work with people with weight loss, and these things. So, all kinds of addictions. So, I turned that ringer off, but this ringer isn't. There. Lesson to self. Sorry about that. All right, this is why I have the paper, because if I get distracted by something, I can go back. See, the thing is that's an intellectualization is when we think, because I'm grown, I should know. That's intellectually. You may even say to yourself, I know that I'm important, I just don't feel important. That's an intellectualization too. We have to feel it to heal it. That's the thing, okay? So when we heal, we understand that we're not always right and we're not always wrong, okay? Many of us have had people come at us with self-righteous anger. Some of this was transference of anger as children from parents or family or caretakers, whoever, And when they transferred their anger to us, we're hurt by something. We're hurt by it. We don't know what we did wrong. And when we express our feelings, someone may dismiss or disregard our feelings, not even listen to us and tell us what we need to think or feel. That's called gaslighting, by the way. Okay. And it may feel uncomfortable, to us, and we may think that it's about us, but it's just sometimes people just don't have the capacity to have empathy or to listen to you. Maybe they haven't learned how to listen yet. I know I had to learn how to listen. See, that's crazy that we have to learn how to listen to be heard, or else we're just going to be those that are talking without thinking, okay? So when I say healing and power, what does that mean, right? What does that mean? Instead of looking for validation outside of ourselves, we look for patterns inside of ourselves. What is bringing us discomfort? What is bringing us sadness? And is it true? And sometimes we find that it is not true. We make it our truth because maybe that was imprinted, embedded, ingrained in us as children. That's the evidence that we kept looking for. I did a talk on non-scale victories last night and the importance of writing those things down or typing them, whatever you choose to do, but you need to acknowledge yourself or nobody else will. See? And a lot of people are looking for that validation on the outside. But when you know it on the inside, that's the power part. That is the power part, okay? So, this is why I have the paper. We're getting back to the paper. All right, there's a saying in manifestation, is so without is so within. This is your energy. You know, what that means is we say that outside reflection what is outside is a reflection of what is inside and manifested out, a projection. Sometimes when we think people don't like us, we don't know that they don't like us. Sometimes we can know they don't like us. So sometimes people just disagree with us, and that makes us afraid to use our words too, because then sometimes that disagreement reminds us of being dismissed or discarded, and we don't want that to happen, so we just don't say anything, right? We just swallow it. All right. Once we come to terms with that, we can see how we can change things for ourselves instead of enduring things, enduring, because with my Texas accent, it may not sound right, enduring things for someone else. In many of the 12-step programs, it is said we can't afford the luxury of anger. That does not mean to blame yourself for everything that goes wrong or even blame someone else. You can't empower yourself by blaming someone else, because we end up at a standstill and the solution is still not corrected. We still don't get to a correction, right, of whatever's wrong. So not by discipline, but by listening and communicating will lead to negotiating. Many of us have compromised ourselves by not using our voices. So, you know, sometimes you have to. Sometimes you can't be saying things that you really want to say. But hopefully you do the healing work so you don't take things on that aren't yours to take on. I see I'm at 12 minutes right now, so I'm trying to hurry up, but I have my papers printed out of what I wanted to say. So let me keep going and reading. I hate to be reading this, but I'm of an age my memory just doesn't say. Okay, I already said that part. Not by discipline, but by listening, we are able to negotiate. We are often upset because we feel we are compromised, and this means we feel out of alignment. This is just a call for a reflection of ourselves. Sometimes it calls for us to make a change, and sometimes for us to accept we feel powerless. And if we're accepting over and over again and can't differentiate between that and by second guessing ourselves, that's what happens. This is where second guessing ourselves comes in. Is, do I say something? Do I not say something? Am I feeling right? Am I not feeling right? That's why it's important to have a person just like I did. So I always suggest prayer and thoughtfulness, and that put forth into action will develop values and virtues. This is developing your character. You know, they used to say, the old fogies used to say, it helps you develop some character. Well, building up hard things help you build character, which helps you build the values and virtues to be able to have good posture and to stand in your words, to believe your own words. But you have to practice your words with that person to believe them and be able to stand comfortably in them, okay? So it's okay if your belief systems are different. We can have different belief systems. We can still laugh and love together. This won't happen if we're longing for someone to validate us, right? So if we need to heal, this may come across that someone is a dictator and not going to hear you when you get gaslit. This is why we must be able to self-reflect and not take the blame on, but to think, did I really do something wrong? Was I wanting help when I got punished? You know, because sometimes that's part of that childhood trauma of growing up. Sometimes we just needed help understanding or knowing something and we get punished, right? It happens in adulthood too. I have a video on not punishing adults, on punishing adults or what have you. So when someone dismisses you, you need to learn that it's not about you. What is important and what is about you? Okay? People behave the way they behave, and it isn't all about you. Sometimes we feel the need to walk on eggshells, and I'm not saying that it's not there. I'm saying that if it is a need, how comfortable do you feel with it? There are many here on YouTube that can help you learn to deal with it and understand not everybody needs to, but your livelihood may depend on it. But just know that even then it will affect your central nervous system because you don't know what's going to happen next, right? And it makes us second guess ourselves because some days everything's great and then other days everything's bad. And that's normal. What's not normal is when you feel like your character, this character. That's why it's important to understand what your values and virtues are, because if you are the character, because if you feel like somebody's talking to you, in an inappropriate way, to be able to understand if it is inappropriate, if they are gaslighting you, or if something else is going on. There's constructive criticism, and then there's just criticism. There's, accusations and things like this. So you have to know this within yourself, your cells and your soul, because it does affect your central nervous system, which will affect your health. So I've worked with the regulation in the central nervous system, and that will help. Just know in either case, how far are you willing to change? The person or situation won't. If you're in a marriage, a relationship, or what have you, the situation's not going to change, because people who aren't going to listen to you, people who haven't asked you, what the problem is, and do you feel comfortable telling them if they do? Are they going to attack you? Some people, that's a valid fear. So these people aren't going to change, at least not without prayer, and you can't make them change and become aware. Eggshell situations are usually a fragmentation of going between really nice and pleasant to hostile and underhanded, fluctuating back and forth. So what happens is everything's great at first, and then after a while you can start seeing a pattern of this happening. Is it's really great? We want consistency. A lot of us, when we have fragmented nervous systems, the lack of consistency seems normal. But we need to be consistent within ourselves. So learning that consistency sometimes needs to be bounced off of somebody else. You know what I mean? Somebody you trust who can listen to you and repeat back to you what you said. I pray because that is my source and my power. I want to come from my values and also align with others and maintain harmony. It is not my way or the highway anymore. It was at one time. At one time, if I did use my words and people didn't agree with me, I didn't want to feel, what word did I put in here? I didn't want to feel like I was inadequate. I wanted people to co-sign my bullshit, And if you didn't, then we could not be friends, because I did not want to take a look at myself. I was still a projector of everyone else. So if they agreed with me, I was a good person. They validated me. If they did not validate me, then I had to go move on to somebody else. They call this supply, and I am not narcissist now, but when I was in my addiction, I was narcissistic. I'm not going to say that I wasn't. I wanted what I wanted when I wanted it, and even out of addiction and codependency, sometimes we are narcissists when we think it's all about us. I'm not saying we are narcissist as in the label. It's the behavior, that behavior of thinking it's all about me, because it's not all about us. We have to gauge our own selves. That's what is about us, is how I feel about me, not how I think you feel about me, how I feel about me. See, validating myself. So I felt inferior or wrong, and I didn't want to be around that because I took that personally when somebody didn't agree with me. I learned in recovery that I do have defects, is we all have these things we get to learn and grow from, which may be called defects. These are our survival skills from the past, but they don't serve us when we're grown sometimes. We learned them as children oftentimes, but they don't serve us as adults. So I was afraid someone would point out those defects. The problem was I had to learn to heal my defects and discern public opinion. This calls for ownership. So I had to share these defects with another person. It wasn't like and then that person listened to me compassionately. And that was how I learned to have compassion of myself and not to keep trying to hide and, and to cover up those feelings and those inadequacies. So I had to share my inadequacies with somebody else and get honest with somebody else so I could be honest with myself. So when I look at myself and acknowledge what my intentions and motivations have been, I can know within my soul what is mine and what is a projection. Some people are deeply wounded and will project their fears and insecurities onto you. I used to do it. I did. And I'm not proud of it, but I can claim it. And that's ownership. And that's standing in my power. See, sometimes realizing what we're powerless over, we understand where we do have power. So, you need to know the difference so that you don't stay in a constant state of limbo, and you can correct if there is an issue within yourself, your cells, and your soul. Like I said, I always let people know, or I tell people that our words are expressions of our thoughts, and our feelings are expression of our body language, posture, and all of this. So that's how we see if someone's confident or not before they say anything. It's their posture, how they're carrying themselves, that energetic level I talk about. Okay. So this helps us navigate from flight, fight, and freeze. This is what self-reflection and healing do. And look, darlings, constant evolving takes time. You can't do it in a day. I used to read these books, and I would read them and finish them. We're getting close to over, and I still have a page left. And I thought I could heal as fast as I could read those books. Okay. Constant and evolving like the earth, so rotates, so does life. Life is good and bad, and in between there's harmony. Harmony is hopeful. It is my hope that you'll be able to see where you can heal and self-reflect, because when you do, you'll know that you are important and deserve to be heard. I could not have worked on my healing if I wouldn't have been able to listen, just like I told y'all earlier. When we have not been listened to, sometimes we don't know how to genuinely do that either. For we only lived in hope of it, but we didn't accept ourselves, so we could not be totally present to hear someone else. I'm almost done. 3 minutes. I don't want to go over 25. Okay. There is on the other end those too who are always speaking and not listening. Believe it or not, we both have the same fear. Or they both have the same fear. If you're speaking and not listening and not speaking, this is the thing, is it's expressed in different ways. You have the same fear of not being heard. Not being heard, because somebody who's speaking over you has a fear that they're not going to be heard. And then if you're not speaking, you're afraid of not being heard because you've given up, So it's the same fear. But in between that, if you can express it, it's harmony. Harmony in both. Harmony means learning to be assertive and not aggressive. Empathy means being able to listen and not necessarily agree. Learning how to do this doesn't come easy. It's common that our family and friends will co-sign our defects. Because just like me, how I was in my past until I took my own inventory, you could not be my friend if you didn't agree. Maturity means by healing. And this is when we grow up. We're just, when we get in mature bodies, doesn't mean that we're mature. I thought so, but that's not true. I even thought before I moved out of the house that I was grown. Anyway, maturity means my healing my inner child. I have to heal my inner child. If my parents would have known better, they would have done better. So I have to heal me and give me what I desire. I have to validate myself, My inner child is innocent and it does not need to defend. I just must be willing to lose my face, or the mask, as they sometimes say in recovery, to save my ass. This means being able to speak these crazy thoughts that go on in my mind so that I can learn to love and laugh with myself and with others. I have friends that say, I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you. And so I'm ready to realize my powerlessness. And after that was when I realized I wasn't in control as hard as I tried. Because believe it or not, both of those things I talked about earlier with the same fear of not being heard, we were trying to control. All right, how do you take an inventory? Hopefully for you can, get a sponsor or a therapist or a friend that won't co-sign your survival skills, but will help you to see yourself in the right light, not as a victim, but someone with might, because that is what we all want, right? Sometimes I get in my Dr. Seuss channeling. I'm sorry, but I'm not. The reason is that you need to be able to communicate through the thoughts that you have without trying to edit them for approval. Do y'all hear that? You need to be able to express the thoughts that you have without trying to edit them for approval. I used to try to edit my thoughts for approval, which kept me really silent. I know I was ashamed of some of my thoughts, and that's why I chose to hang with a lot of victims and people who would co-sign. I used to hang around circles where there were a lot of victims, and there were legitimate. There are legitimate victims. I'm not saying that there's not. But the people I admire aren't the victims who stayed down, but the victims who got up and showed me that I could too. They are important, and I am too. So I'm on the last sentence, okay? So please bear with me. I know we're one who could have claimed victimhood and did not do that was Oprah Winfrey. I saw a reel the other day that said that Maya Angelou had told her that her legacy was the souls she affected each person who she connected with and saw her show, heard her words, and had encouraged them to do something different that they hadn't done or learn something new that they didn't know. So when we die, that's the most important thing. It's not the material wealth, it's not those things, it's how people are going to speak of us after we're gone. Because we never know when our last day is, y'all. We just don't know. It's not like we're all going to get old and then people are going to say, oh, they lived a long, happy life, because it may not happen. It might. But what our legacy is what people say, how we inspired them. How we inspire them. So let me see if there's anything else I need to say. When we die, that is not the important thing we can leave behind. It's not our material wealth. That's not to feed it into a place of lack. That is how we come into alignment with Source and realize our importance in the grand scheme of things. We all have the accessibility to people who inspire us to grow. It's only fear that holds us back. It's about taking that one step, that one thing, doing the one thing different, then another, and then you walk out of what no longer serves you into what deserves you. Because you deserve goodness and grace. You deserve all these things, these virtues, grace. You have to get that through walking, keeping walking when things are hard. Humility, asking for help, getting support. Our best thinking gets us in trouble sometimes. And then that virtue of patience, because I know in addiction, sometimes we want instant gratification. And we've always heard patience is a virtue and hated that, but it's true. Okay? So you have a hero inside of you and a legacy to tell. So I hope this video has been helpful to you. I'm sorry, I went over 20, a couple of minutes, but I apologize. If you were able to stay, thank you so much. Again, I hope this video has been helpful. If you have any ideas for topics, please list them, please email me because it's in the description below, or you can post it in the questions or the comments below. All right. Thank you for joining me, and I hope that whatever I said today helped your soul. Have a great weekend or week, wherever we're at when I post this. Thank you so much. I wish you much love and peace. Bye.